Hello. I'll be honest, this video is not what I expected I'd be doing when I first decided to go into content creation. Lately, I've been trying to come up with some ideas for long-form videos on this channel, and I've thought about doing an actual storytime animation for a while now, but then I remembered I'm a socially crippled loner recluse with nothing interesting going on in his life to speak of, so... yeah, that idea went nowhere. But then I thought, hey, you know what's always interesting? Video games. So I thought, why not dedicate a video talking about a game I love? There's lots of good titles to choose from. There's gotta be something I think is worth discussing. Right, I forgot I was never that big of a gamer to begin with. Alright then, I guess it's back to the drawing board. Wait a second! Portal. It's a game. By Valve. In this world, there are two kinds of people. You either love the Portal franchise, or you haven't played it yet, so you don't know you love it. In any case, you probably already have some idea of what the game entails. You have a gun, and you shoot out a hole with the gun, and then you shoot out another hole, and when you walk into the first hole, you come out the second hole. Wow! Magic? Nope. Science. Okay, I jest. But seriously, words cannot even begin to describe just how much I adore this franchise. Everything from the engaging puzzles, the effective world building through environments, the witty writing and humor, the banger soundtrack, it's all perfection. I cannot speak any more highly about these games. They're just timeless masterpieces. But that's pretty much well established. And I don't want to sit here and tell you stuff some game reviewer probably already covered before. No. I want to sit here and talk to you about the lore! Yep, you heard me right. This deceptively simple concept for an FPS puzzle platform game has a lot more to it than just cake memes, lemon grenades, and dummy thick robots. There is indeed lore. Stupid lore, yes, but it goes deeper than the salt mines that Aperture Science was built upon. And I thought I would dedicate a video talking about just how insane and convoluted the story is. Why am I doing this? Who asked for this? Nobody. I'm doing this for me, I don't care. You can probably already tell, I am obsessed with this game. Like, to an uncomfortable degree. And I guess I'm hoping this video resonates with other people who love these games just as much as I do. I mean, they were definitely popular during their time, especially when the second installment was released. But I feel like there aren't a lot of people talking about it nowadays, and I really want to bump that number up to a fuck ton. Plus, maybe seeing all the support for a nearly 17-year-old franchise might finally inspire Valve to get off their asses and do something! What? No, not that thing! Okay, let's jump into it. Now, full disclaimer, I can't with full confidence say that this is a comprehensive timeline of events from the Portal universe, owing to the fact that a lot of it is kind of speculation based on what we know from the Easter eggs, the pre-recorded messages from Portal 2, and that one comic. I'm also heavily relying on the wiki for this one. This is basically a summary of the important stuff, plus a few teeny tiny mentions from Half-Life, since they do share the same universe. I'm just gonna put in whatever relevant details I can, but steer clear of that franchise in general, because oh boy, I do not need to head down that rabbit hole. At least not until I've finished all the games, which probably won't be for a long time. What can I say? Water hazard has me stymied. Okay, so we begin where all great stories do. Michigan. It's the 40s, so imagine America, but war. Needless to say, kind of a sucky time period. But not as sucky for some people. Take for instance Cave Johnson, an up-and-coming salesman who just made a fortune selling shower curtains to the military in 1943. He uses his newfound monies to buy an abandoned salt mine in Upper Michigan, on which he would erect the headquarters for his new endeavor, Aperture Science Innovators. Now, the game doesn't outright mention any specific research the company was doing at the time that warranted calling themselves Science Innovators, but that didn't stop them from winning the Best New Science Company Award from the Science and Business Institute of America. Yeah, real name right there. And by 1949, Aperture was ranked number 2 on the list of top 100 applied science companies in the world. Second only to, and this is heavily implied, Black Mesa. Now you might be thinking, hold on, it sounds like Cave's business plan going into this whole thing was just do science. That doesn't seem very sound, that can't possibly work, and I agree. But it did. How? I don't know. Yeah, I'd just go with it if I were you. If we questioned everything about the story, there wouldn't be a Portal franchise. Anyways, Aperture makes it big in the field of quote-unquote science, and by the time the 50s roll around, they're at the top of their game. Or at least as high as they can go without Black Mesa cock-blocking them from the top spot. Nevertheless, the company's found great success, and by this point, they're practically swimming in moolah and government contracts. During this time, Cave gets an assistant, one Carolyn. No last name given, but trust me, she is very, very important to the story. Now, the game only implies a professional relationship between Cave and Carolyn, but a lot of fans speculate that there was a lot more than science going on between these two, if you catch my drift. And honestly, who can blame them? The ship was right there. The game practically wants you to think that they're together together. I mean, look at this portrait. There's no way Cave wasn't hitting that. Anyways, they start building these huge testing spheres right from the bottom of the salt mines. And they're gonna use them to conduct all sorts of wacky experiments. And who are they gonna get to perform these tests? Why, nobody but the best of the best, of course. We're talking astronauts, war heroes, Olympians, absolute specimens of the human race called upon by Cave to forward the cause of science for the good of humanity. Except that wasn't happening, no. Because these so-called wacky experiments were so wacky, they turned the Geneva Convention into the Geneva Suggestion. Exactly what were they doing down there? Oh, I don't know. Here's a few examples. Splicing mantis DNA into their test subjects, turning blood into gasoline, aiming superconductors at people for shits and giggles, fucking over the control group with fake repulsion gel, feeding people fluorescent calcium, vitrifying their frontal lobes, sending nanoparticles into the test subjects to do God knows what to forcing their test subjects to work in asbestos, tumors everywhere. Yeah, if you thought Aperture's reputation was questionable before, now you know they're outright ethically bankrupt. And the worst part is, they don't even know why they're doing this shit. They're just throwing science at the wall to see what sticks. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that.
Just a heads up, we're going to have a superconductor turned up full blast and pointed at you for the duration of this next test. I'll be honest, we're throwing science at the wall here to see what sticks. No idea what it'll do. Probably nothing. Best case scenario, you might get some superpowers. Worst case, some tumors, which we'll cut out.
But whatever works, works, I guess, so it's all smooth sailing. Well, for Aperture at least. Yeah, can't really say the same for those dead test subjects, but hey, who's gonna notice, right? Well, the American government, that's who. So they hold a Senate hearing with Aperture in 1968 in response to these missing astronauts. This bankrupts the company, of course, and now they gotta find ways to keep up their testing initiative since now they can't afford to hire top-tier humans for their messed up experiments. So instead, they went for the next best thing. Hobos. Random dudes they picked up from the street and bribed with $60. These guys were disposable, and this meant they didn't have to bother with all the paperwork that came with ensuring their participants' safety. Because no one's gonna miss some piss-drunk vagrant shitting himself in the corner of a test chamber. This was all still very illegal, of course, not to mention highly unethical. But Aperture's all about science, not ethics, and their company stayed afloat all throughout the 70s. It was around this time they hit their biggest achievement yet. The Borealis. It was a decommissioned Coast Guard icebreaker containing Aperture's most advanced technology to date. Nobody really knows what exactly it was, but people suspected it had something to do with localized teleportation. The ship would become a legend in the scientific community after it disappeared with all hands on deck seemingly out of nowhere. However, this might have been for the best, because if the Combine had easily found this technology during their takeover, it would have been over for humanity. I mean, I don't think we would have survived long enough to see Gordon Freeman wake up from stasis to join the Nope, not touching that, not now, not for a long time. No sir, focus. Where were we? Oh yeah. So now it's the 80s, and Aperture's gotten to a point where they can't even pay homeless guys to be guinea pigs for their experiments. So they start forcing their employees to participate in mandatory testing and getting robots to take over their old jobs. It's also around this time that Cave made another impulsive decision. Hey, what's that thing up there? The moon, sir? I want it. You want moon rocks. Sir, I don't think that's in the budget right now. But I want it. That's gonna set us back at least 70 million. We can't afford to. I got it. Well, how? He gets his lab boys to grind these moon rocks into a gel, and they find it's the perfect conductor for the portal technology they had been developing all this time. Finally, a breakthrough. This could be the saving grace the company was looking for. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, Cave gets moonsick. Apparently, ground up moon rocks are pure poison to the human body. I'm not entirely sure just how true that is, but in any case, his chickens have finally come home to roost and he is now dying. Faced with the inevitability of his demise, he gets his engineers to work on the genetic life form and disk operating system, or GLaDOS, in the hopes of preserving his consciousness into a computer. But before they could get around to doing that, well, he bites it. His dying wish was that Carolyn be put in charge of running the facility and that she be put in the computer in his stead, which I can't imagine she would have been crazy about. I mean, I don't think anyone being forced into that would be. Could you imagine someone holding you down and saying, hey, I'm gonna put your entire living consciousness in a 2013 Mac Pro, hope you're okay with that? I definitely wouldn't be. But the project would push on all throughout the 90s until 2000 something, when they finally turned GLaDOS on as part of the Bring Your Daughter to Work event they were hosting that day. And can anyone here guess what happens when you non-consensually stuff a living person's consciousness into a giant robot? If you answered that she'd go insane, lock down the entire facility, and flood it with a deadly neurotoxin killing most of the employees, that is an oddly specific guess. What did you have to do with it? So yeah, that's what she does. The engineers managed to put a morality core on her before she wiped out everyone in the facility, but no dice. Everyone was now trapped inside and forced to test at the mercy of a rogue AI, while any survivors who managed to make it out in time now have to deal with the fallout of another company's dumbassery. But again, I'm not gonna talk about Half-Life. It's around this time another character comes out to play. It's Doug Ratman, one of the last surviving employees at Aperture Science who worked on the GLaDOS initiative. He managed to evade detection from GLaDOS' systems, and in an effort to try and stop her murderous testing spree, he puts one of the undesirable test subjects at the top of her roster. And now we're getting to the good stuff. It's time to say hello to everyone's favorite dangerous mutant lunatic, Chell! What is it with the women in these games having no last name? Anyways, Chell awakens from stasis and the events of Portal 1 unfold. She traverses through the test chambers with a handheld portal device solving GLaDOS' tests, completely oblivious of the fact that no one's come out to oversee her progress since she woke up and everything in these chambers just happens to be trying to kill her. But she manages to complete all the tests and gets ready to receive the cake GLaDOS promised her as a reward. But what Chell didn't know was when she said cake, she actually meant agonizing death by roaring fire pit. Chell rightfully goes and portals on out of there. She sneaks her way through the bowels of Aperture, occasionally coming across Doug's hideouts filled with the secret messages and his vintage Playboy stash. And eventually she finds her way to GLaDOS' chamber. She's got different personality cores attached to her, and Chell breaks off every single one and throws them into these conveniently placed incinerators. I swear, whoever designed this place must have been on something. Her plan's a success, and GLaDOS goes offline with a big bang. But just when she finally manages to get out, she gets knocked unconscious, allowing her to get dragged back in by some robot and placed back into extended relaxation. Except the cryochamber power went down with the explosion, so her life support systems were basically non-existent. Ratman sees this and feels guilty, so he tries to run after her to get her out, but he gets gunned down by a turret in the process. He couldn't manage to get her out of there, but he was able to divert the reserve power to her chamber to keep her alive. The only caveat being that she would be asleep for an indefinite amount of time. Doug bites it, and Sleeping Beauty over here remains in stasis for God knows how long. Discussions on how long she was actually asleep vary from as little as a few hundred years to as much as 50,000. Considering how batshit insane the story is anyway, let's just assume it's the latter. So she wakes up 50,000 years into the future and gets up with no problem? Like, how? Her muscles should have atrophied to the point where they look like raisins. Forget brain damage, how is she able to stand, let alone walk around and address everything around her? Whatever, let's just assume the cryochamber did its job way too well. Fuck it, it's Aperture. She wakes up to answer a knocking at the door, and she opens it to find Wheatus. Actually, no, it's Wheatley. A jolly old British personality core in charge of overseeing the test subjects in stasis. Except they're all vegetables now, so his life has no meaning. He devises a plan to escape the facility with Chell, and the two of them start traversing the ruins of Aperture Science. They stumble upon GLaDOS' old chamber, as well as what remains of her robot body, and somehow manage to wake her up again. GLaDOS is like, oh hey, it's you! You're a dick! And she don't take too kindly to getting killed, so she forces Chell to test for the rest of her life. And by this point, Chell is just done with her bullshit. So she escapes back into the facility, hiding from GLaDOS as she's slowly restoring Aperture to its former glory. Chell and Wheatley mess with her supply of neurotoxin and cute killer robots to foil her plans. But oops, she gets captured again, and the two of them face off in an epic battle of wits. The computer senses that GLaDOS has become corrupt and initiates a core transfer protocol with Wheatley as the substitute core. It's a success, and Wheatley is put into GLaDOS' body. But just as Chell's about to finally escape the facility in a lift, Wheatley does a full 180 and immediately starts going on an insanity-fueled power trip and puts GLaDOS into a potato battery. She then suddenly remembers who Wheatley was and that he was in fact an intelligence dampening sphere made in an attempt to subdue her homicidal tendencies. She points this out to him and he's like, nuh-uh! So he punches her and Chell in the elevator they're in down into the shaft, and they fall for a long time and find themselves in the old Aperture facility that's been sealed off for years. Chell comes to and wait, what? Okay, no. It's one thing to come up with an explanation for why our main character doesn't take fall damage in the game. Long fall boots? More like long fall bullshit. But whatever, I can excuse the ingenuity behind that. What I can't excuse is any explanation for why Chell is perfectly fine after free falling for more than 3 kilometers and hitting the ground at full speed. Her spine should be Kool-Aid powder by now. This makes absolutely no sense. How is she alive? Fuck it, it's Aperture. She starts making her way through the old Aperture test chambers and eventually rescues GLaDOS from being pecked by a crow. The two form an alliance and they slowly start to make their way back up to Wheatley. All the while, they start to uncover all the history I just talked about through Cave Johnson's pre-recorded messages on the PA system, from Aperture's golden years to Cave's eventual downfall. It's also through these messages that GLaDOS starts to remember that she was in fact Carolyn, getting her more in touch with her human side. They make it back up to find that Wheatley's antics are edging the facility close to destruction, and so they face off in a final boss battle. Chell and GLaDOS put corrupt personality cores on Wheatley to get him corrupt enough to initiate another core transfer procedure, but as Chell's about to press the stalemate resolution button, Wheatley booby traps it, blowing her away. And just when all seems lost, part of the roof collapses, revealing a full moon. That is a beautiful moon, a gorgeous, pale, test chamber white moon. It's too bad I'm about to die now, and I'm never gonna see another full moon like this one I'm currently looking at. Oh, wait a sec! Okay, in all seriousness, I love this sequence. It still blows my mind to this day. Anyway, Wheatley gets sucked into space and GLaDOS makes it back in her body in time to pull Chell back in. After she comes to, GLaDOS gives a whole speech about how they're friends now and shit, but then out of nowhere she deletes Carolyn from her system. GLaDOS immediately goes back to bitch mode, but she decides killing Chell is literally more trouble than it's worth, and instead she releases her back into the wild. But not before an entire turret opera sings her a nice little goodbye song. And that's it. That's the whole story. It's kind of a lot considering there are only 2 official Portal games, and the 2 of them combined barely even amount to 4 hours of gameplay, but it's still pretty fun to pick apart. I forgot to mention Portal 2 also has a DLC. It's just custom community-made maps that you can play online, but these maps have Cave Johnson voice lines that come together to form an entire hidden narrative involving the multiverse. It's really hilarious stuff, but I don't have the time to cover all that now. Could be a future video though, who knows? If this performs well, then I guess there's room for another Portal-related thing. For now though, thanks for watching. If you want to see me do an actual storytime animation, or if you want more videos in this format, feel free to leave a comment and maybe consider subscribing. Oh, and I also have an Instagram and a Twitter, I refuse to call it X, where I post art and my other shenanigans. So maybe follow me there too. This has been Alfonso, signing off. Oh god, I did not think this through! I'm free falling! I'm gaining momentum and reaching terminal velocity! If I stop right now, I'll hit the ground at full speed! I might as well have jumped off the Empire State Building! Oh god, someone please help me, I'm gonna die!